I'm about to share with you an urgent issue that affects us all. Our main source of oxygen is on the verge of collapsing. Whether or not you heed the warning in these next few moments will be the difference between our survival or our extinction. Show me today's news.
In other news, growing crops has failed after multiple attempts, and oxygen levels are critically low. Worldwide governments advise, do not go outside without your oxygen masks. Please be safe. Breaking news. Today is a day we'll never forget. We've just lost the last coral reef that's been preserved until now. It is official. Your kids and generations to come will never see marine life again.
Dear oceans of the world, I'm sorry that we as a society let you down. I would do anything to go back in the time and reverse the damage we have done to you. I'm sorry for polluting you, filling your water with microplastics, destroying your underwater forests brimming with potential cures for countless diseases, and decimating your marine life. We were given so much, the only planet in our solar system with life, and yet we wasted it. It was our duty to protect Mother Nature, yet we completely neglected your cries in exchange for imaginary wealth.
Dire warning about climate change. According to a new report,
will cause environmental and economic devastation.
Ecosystems that provide us with breathable air, drinkable water, fertile soil, and bountiful seas.
Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money.
The world isn't the same anymore. We are struggling. We didn't realize what we had until it was gone. I would do anything to go back into time, to send a message to everyone inhabiting the planet, saying that we should have stood together, to voice that now is the time to stand up and take action, so that we could redirect the course of the future to save it. If only I could go back. I'm sorry we failed. Reverse the damage? I haven't seen one of these shells in years. Hello?
Bro, what happened? Did you sleep in? Come on, let's go surf.
Surf? What do you mean?
I've been waiting outside your house for the past 30 minutes. Come on, get your butt out of here. What are you doing, man? Let's go. Get in, we're firing. Come on, you kook, we don't got all day. Let's go. Oh man, it's such a nice day. I can't wait to get out on the reef. The waves are firing today.
The reef?
Yes, why are you acting so weird? What is wrong with you?
I haven't seen the reef in years, man.
What are you talking about? We were just surfing yesterday.
Just pull over at the bay. There's something I gotta show you.
Okay.
Hey, leave the boards. Take the mask. We gotta go check out the reef.
Okay. Why are we out here?
Dive down and tell me what you see.
Okay. Man, why have I never seen this before?
Why haven't any of us noticed this? We have to tell the world what's happening to our reefs. And that's how this all started. Seeing with my own eyes what's happening to one of our most important ecosystems. Yet, no one seemed aware of what was happening. I knew that if we didn't take immediate action to help save our reefs, we would soon be terrorized by them becoming obsolete. I made the goal to create a film that can not only spread awareness, but help bring positive action before it's too late. But in order to do this, I needed help. I knew exactly who I needed to call. My friends Tim Sykes and Matt Abad started a charity called Karmagawa, a foundation that brings charities greatly needed donations and helps them spread their great work through social media. Their most recent project with Sam Calder to help save the rhinos raised over $1 million in donations and received over 30 million views on social media, which brought massive awareness to that cause. I knew that together, we could really get the word out about how urgent it is to save our reefs and marine life before it's too late.
What's up, Amir? You do your sit-ups yet today?
Man, no time for sit-ups. Tim, I just discovered something that's happening to our oceans. We gotta make a video about it.
Oh man, that sounds intense. Why don't you come over? Let's make a plan.
Cool, I'll be there in a sec.
After explaining to them what I learned, we created the project Save the Reef to bring everyone together to share this message worldwide and put together a plan of action. We would travel to coral reefs around the world and document what we saw while also meeting with local leaders and charities in each location. We'd take our friends to show off their current state to help educate the world and see what we can do to fix the problem. But you're probably wondering what a coral reef is. Coral reefs, known as the rainforest of the seas, are a haven for marine life. Coral polyps are tiny, soft-bodied organisms related to sea anemones and jellyfish. Corals provide homes for thousands of animals and plants and grant us the oxygen we breathe. An estimated 25% of all marine species live near the coral reefs, even though they take up less than 1% of the ocean floor. These reefs provide billions of dollars worth of economic value to people every year through fisheries, tourism, and protection from storm waves. So what exactly is happening to these reefs? Before I dive into that, I need to take you back to where this all began. And what better place to go talk about the ocean than Kansas?
Oh, Kansas.
You got your mama's sunshine, you got your daddy's rain. You're like a piece of heaven in a hurricane. And it's bubbling.
My name's Amir Zakeri. I was born the youngest of 8 kids and raised in the Midwest of the US, over 700 miles from the nearest drop of salt water. Being landlocked, my only view of the ocean was through the interpretation of the media. I moved to Hawaii right out of high school, and man, did I fall in love with this place.
Sometimes you cry your big blue eyes.
But it's here I began to notice that the ocean was in a different state of health than I had once imagined it to be. I had pictured the Pacific to be clean and filled with vibrant coral reefs, flourishing with marine life. It didn't take long to learn the reality of the critical condition of the ocean. The more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. I wanted to see if my family's new generation was just as uneducated as I had once been about what's really happening to our planet. Audio test. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you know what a coral is? Have you seen these before?
Yeah, I'm a Little Mermaid.
You don't know what it is though?
No.
Do you know what it does?
I think it keeps us healthy.
Yeah? How?
Because it comes from the ocean.
And how does the ocean keep us healthy?
Because, oh no.
You don't know?
No.
Well, what does this look like?
A bumpy rock with holes in it and carved.
Do you know its purpose?
No.
No?
No.
So you don't know what this is?
No.
Do you know what a tree is?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're kind of everywhere?
Yeah.
What do trees do for us?
They make us have oxygen.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we can do what?
So we can breathe. Yeah.
What if I told you that this was just as important as a tree?
Okay.
What color is this?
White.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what color are the corals in the movies?
Rainbow.
A rainbow?
Yeah.
With like a lot of fish?
Yeah.
Just like Aylin, I too thought the underwater world was this bright and colorful place filled with life. I never would have imagined it to be suffering. Because how else are you supposed to know when this is how most media depicts the reef? We went to see it in person. I knew that we had to start this in Australia because it has the biggest reef in the world. Our first mission was to meet up with the nonprofit organization Great Barrier Reef Legacy. We brought along our friends Ava, Tarzan, Brother Nature, Alicia, and Renee to see in person what's happening to the reefs and what we can do to help save them.
So we've travelled from the coast all the way out to the outer barrier reef today. We're going to jump in, scuba divers are going to come and go a little bit deeper, snorkelers you can explore the top reef, and we'll see what we see.
What did you imagine the Great Barrier Reef to look like?
Like Finding Nemo. Like I literally imagined the Great Barrier Reef to look like Finding Nemo. That's why I kind of like always had this goal to eventually learn how to scuba dive for the Great Barrier Reef.
Man, we're expecting to go out into the Great Barrier Reef, see a lot of wildlife, a lot of beautiful coral, just like we see in the pictures and the magazines and the documentaries.
I mean, shoot, man, I watched Nemo like 100 times, bro, so I'm so excited to come and just like see this massive land underwater, full of wildlife, full of coral, full of things that we've been looking forward to for our entire lives. I guess you want me to tell you something majestic, right? Like something that you would see in like a movie or like a picture book. It's more like a graveyard. It's like apocalyptic, you know what I'm saying? Like, breaks your heart. We've spent so many years wishing and hoping and praying to get somewhere to finally see something. And imagine finally get here after 20 years thinking about it. And it's nothing like you ever thought it was gonna be.
What did the reefs look like?
It looked like they were dying.
Like they were dying? What if I told you we only have 30 years before they're all dead?
That would be sad.
Crazy, right? What do we need to do?
We need to save it.
So, just to give you an idea, the site that we jumped in on, you will have noticed looked terrible. Yeah? That's not what you expected to see?
No.
How did you feel when you saw that?
It still hurts, you know? Feels like you said, seeing a loved one on a deathbed and knowing if you're gonna see him again or not.
Yep. It's the exact opposite from that opening scene in Finding Nemo. You know, the color, the movement, everything moving in every direction, like a busy city. You know, we kind of say it's like a bushfire's been through there. It's effectively covered in algae and it's not functioning as a coral reef anymore. And once a coral reef flips to an algal dominated state, like with seaweeds like we just saw, it's extremely hard to get it back.
Corals around the world are being bleached, which then leads to their death. Coral bleaching is where the coral lose their symbiotic algae that produce the food they need to survive. This leaves them vulnerable to other threats and diseases, and even kill the coral colonies from starvation.
What a lot of people don't understand when they hear about coral bleaching is that really it affects corals, the building blocks of a coral reef. And once we lose those building blocks, we lose entire ecosystem function. So you can imagine as you start pulling pieces out of this extremely complex environment, it stops behaving the way we know it. And what we end up with is something very, very different.
Innovation for new technology to help build reef resilience is essential in our urgent crisis. Luckily, there are organizations such as the Great Barrier Reef Legacy who are a global leader in marine expeditions, delivering innovative science, education, and public engagement to accelerate actions vital to the future survival of coral reefs. Our second mission in Australia was to meet up with the Reef Restoration Foundation to learn how to bring corals back to life.
I'm here with Stuart, the CEO of Reef Restoration.
We're a not-for-profit organisation and we established the first ocean-based coral nursery in the Great Barrier Reef. And this is all about how we start restoring and regenerating high-value sections of the Great Barrier Reef.
Wow. So what we're doing now is placing the coral back on the rock, getting ready to restore the ocean, baby. The algae all off the coral, kind of like cleaning your sneakers a little bit. Got it nice and clean.
Now the little small dots you see on there are called polyps. So now we take this environmentally friendly putty, it's like a glue, and you stick it on. And then you find the ridges on the rocks and you stick it in there, right?
And you mentioned when they're left alone, they grow a lot faster, about 6 times faster, right?
When they grow on the reef, we think we grow them about 6 to 7 times faster than they grow naturally by stressing them on the trees like that, yeah.
This coral number 1, he was already here. And this is my boy Albert. He's strong, sturdy, he's getting ready to live his life in the ocean and become a big old coral. Because we're helping restore the reef, baby.
And they're all gonna join together eventually, and then they'll all just be coral, I guess.
No, they're gonna be Albert.
We are gonna go to our coral nursery that is in Fitzroy Island, the first coral nursery that exists in the Great Barrier Reef. We are gonna clean the frames, we're gonna make sure that the corals are happy, and we are gonna plant a few corals today.
They take small cuttings from coral that have withstood previous bleaching events that are attached to underwater frames to grow. After 6 to 12 months, the corals are attached back onto the reef. From one small cutting, thousands of new corals can be created. Once those coral fragments grow, they will help recreate the reef environment and marine life will be able to return while also strengthening the new reef. It was awesome to get hands-on with this project. But I couldn't help but feel this problem might be bigger than I had imagined. Next up was Belize, which has the second largest reef in the world. We heard of an eco-friendly resort there called Hamanasi and wanted to see what they're doing to help save the oceans. Hamanasi has eliminated all single-use plastics. It was awesome to see their handmade straws from bamboo. They support local products and farms, switch to reef-safe sunscreen, and teach the tourists about the reef and how they can help save it. It was so inspiring to see a resort support a healthier planet. And after seeing how they instituted these changes, I realized all hotels could also make similar positive changes. It was a relief to see that the Belize Reef was in surprisingly good shape. I wanted to know why, so I met up with Janelle from Oceana, a local charity that has pushed hard for stricter environmental laws here.
Got the government to pass in December 2017 an indefinite offshore oil moratorium, and Belize became one of the first countries in the world to do this, to say that we do not want something that is so inherently hazardous and dangerous and permanent to destroy these resources that we depend on as a country and as a people every single day. There's one thing on land that you spill something and you can clean it up. Once it gets into the water, you can't tell it, oh, go over here, don't go over there.
While I was filming one of the local beaches, I met a boy named Karim. He was only 12 years old, but the most knowledgeable 12-year-old I'd ever met. Here's his message to the world.
It's white, and the turtles will probably think it's a jellyfish and they will eat it and it will get stuck in their intestines and they will die. You can take your own bag and put your stuff in your bag so you don't use any more plastic.
Seems like a little thing.
Yeah.
But if enough people do it,
it will be a big thing.
There won't be that.
Yeah. This won't be here. I saw a turtle with, he was dead and he had a piece of plastic coming out of his mouth.
Coming out of his mouth?
It was in his beak. It was stuck. See a poor animal just living its life and dying because of this. Yeah.
Look, you're standing on one right now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't end.
Yeah. It's a never-ending rain of plastic. It's really hard to clean it, but it's not really hard. It's just your mentality. It's everywhere. Even the small little bits count. And a small thing can make a big difference. We need garbage bins. Thanks. There's a lot of plastic and stuff, and eventually this will end up in the sea, and something will eat it. Maybe years it has been here and it hasn't degraded yet. No matter how hard we try to clean our village, people still come and mess it up with plastics and stuff.
What's the solution to this epidemic?
I think the solution for this is to educate the people about the use of plastic and tell the companies to stop using plastic, to use something even expensiver than plastic. Even though it costs a lot of money, it will still make a difference in the world. So there will be less animals dying. They're just living their life being animals, and we just come here to throw garbage and kill them. Kids don't really know about it, so it's up to the adults to teach them about it. Everywhere you go, you see plastic.
By 2030, if we continue to litter the way we do and use as many single-use plastic items as we do, we will have more plastic in the oceans than fish. And also in terms of our behavior rates, in terms of energy and dependence on things like fossil fuel, by 2050, we would have compromised most of the, if not all, of the underwater life on our planet. And that is really some scary facts. Those are the ones that keep me up at night.
Plastic is now found in all the furthest reaches of our planet, at the bottom of the deepest sea, on the most remote beaches, and even inside people. My research found plastic in about a quarter of fish species in the Pacific Ocean. Plastic production is on track to double in the next 20 years.
Although Belize is making giant steps in preserving their oceans, unfortunately, they are still seeing death in their reefs. You're from here, you're from Belize, and tell me about the reef, your experience with it.
Yeah, when I was growing up, the reef was very bright, and there was so much healthy life on the reef, and now they die.
Little did we know, it wasn't the lack of effort from the Belizeans that was killing the coral reefs. One of the main contributors was the global issue of climate change. After realizing this somber fact, we decided to continue the journey to the Seychelles, a place that had been on all of our bucket lists since we were kids.
First time in Seychelles, about to go on our first dive out here.
What are you expecting?
Beauty, fish, turtles, good times and good vibes.
You've seen a bunch of videos of Seychelles and the reefs and stuff?
Dude, since like Tumblr, since we're kids, man. Like all the big rocks on the beach, the beautiful sea life. Go check it out.
Alright, check out the good reef. So how was it?
Crazy, man.
What do you mean? Was it as alive as you thought?
It's not like it looks on the internet, that's for sure.
No way.
It's like all the coral is just like fields and fields of dead coral, and it's crazy. There's still so much marine life, but like everything is dead. Everything is the smallest resemblance of like some live coral, but it's crazy. You look around, everything is so green, so blue, so perfect. You wouldn't expect that. Like beneath the layer of water is just dead, but it's crazy coming from Hawaii to like seeing like pretty good reef to here. It's like you never want to see this happen to your home, that's for sure.
We immediately met up with a local organization, Marine Conservation Society of Seychelles, to hear about their reefs.
When I was growing up, the coral reef around Seychelles was so beautiful. I used to enjoy snorkeling. It was always lovely to see beautiful colors, beautiful species of fish everywhere. And now, after I went back to the water, 2016 beaching event, it was just horrible. Like, it was really sad to see that a lot of corals had died. And there was barely anything to look at. Since 2017, they started coral projects whereby they partnered with hotels to be able to restore degraded reefs around the hotel areas.
Right away, we went to our hotel staff and asked about their conservation practices.
We have also partnered up with the Marine Conservation Society of Seychelles. We've done a snorkeling trail where snorkels are guided with the guest, and they explain everything the environment is going through. And we have a coral nursery. We're doing a coral restoration program. For this past year, we've stopped plastic straws, plastic water bottles in the rooms. We've stopped completely plastic bags. So if you imagine hotels with hundreds of rooms and all the plastic that they could consume is quite enormous.
I couldn't believe how much coral death we'd seen through our journey leading up to this point. I was hoping this would be the turn for good news, but it wasn't. We then headed to South Africa with our friends to meet up with the charity Shark Conservancy. The surface is so dark I can't even see underwater. What's happening to the reefs here?
Amir, these reefs are being destroyed at an alarming rate, and the problem is today, there aren't very many of them left. We study the role of sharks in ocean ecosystems and try and understand how sharks are shaping the world around them Sharks around the world are experiencing huge population declines, and this is forever changing the face of our oceans. We need to understand how sharks and how ocean health are related and how that affects us as human beings.
Seeing that our cold water reefs were in the same critical state as our tropical reefs shocked me. Each corner of the world seemed to be affected.
I was in Kauai when I was like 11 years old. My grandma lived there, and I remember snorkeling for my first time, and just like I was amazed by the colors and the amount of fish. 10 years later, to the same spots, and it was so dead and so much different than what I expected.
It's crazy because nobody knows, and it's affecting us all, and it's affecting all of the ocean, and so we really just need to start fixing it and bringing awareness to it and having everybody know and using the right products and not using so much plastic.
It'd be one of the most rewarding things to bring up a family and allow them to see the world in the way that I did and not have to explain things that are extinct because we weren't able to treat our earth with, enough care.
The second to last stop on our global journey was Tahiti, my favorite place I'd ever visited. It was here that we worked with the charity Coral Gardeners, who were my main inspiration to make this film in the first place.
This lagoon in front of my house, it's like 80% in Maharipa, in Moorea, 80% of the reef is dead. We are collecting coral mostly broken by humans, and we are planting them back on the reef so that we can have new babies coral that will grow and do a new reef.
When you go down there and you see this little piece of coral and you can plant it and you know that that's your piece of coral that you're bringing back into the environment, it's a really good feeling, and we need those little good feelings to keep going in the conservation world because it's so much doom and gloom all the time.
It was hard to believe that a place this beautiful and pristine could be suffering. Even the local fishermen we met up with told us how hard it was to catch fish to feed his family. We spent time with the local kids, and they really helped me understand how much their life depends on the reef. After 3 long months of traveling the world, we finally headed home to Hawaii. When we arrived, we immediately went to have some much-needed conversations with some of our good friends. You were explaining to me earlier how the sprays that people are spraying on their lawn, how that can impact the environment negatively.
Yeah, well, the World Health Organization just put out a claim that Roundup is guaranteed a cancer-causing carcinogen. Huge chemical corporations here that farm experimental GMO seed. So where they're farming, there's a lot of water outlets that run from the mountain all the way through to the ocean. And so out in front of those places, the reefs are dead. There's been major die-offs of sea urchins out there, like millions of sea urchins dead. Well, you look right down the street from my house, we got a huge golf course for the last like 20 years or 30 years. The reefs out front where all the rivers come out are all dead. There's no fish, there's no limu, which is seaweed. All the seaweeds die. And so when the seaweeds die, the fish don't come around. The reefs die. The fish feed the reefs. So it's become like an epidemic of overuse of these things that make your life easier but aren't good for you and your family.
Growing up on Oahu, it's been absolutely crazy watching what's been happening to our reefs. I would say the number one thing that I see is when I jump in the water in Waikiki area, because there's a lot of people going in the ocean there, and a lot of people aren't making the right decisions on what sunscreen to wear. And if you ever go snorkeling at Waikiki, the reefs are non-existent, and it's really sad. And the reefs out here at Pipeline, almost non-existent. It's really sad to see what's happening around here.
Chemical sunscreens, first and foremost, primarily are threatening our coral reefs. What you put on your body, the sunscreen-wise, washes off into the ocean, and those chemicals are actually killing off our coral reefs.
What chemicals in particular?
Primarily oxybenzone and octinizate, but there are more studies showing that all of the chemicals in chemical sunscreen formulas are harmful to coral reefs.
So what are the alternatives?
You definitely want a mineral non-nano zinc oxide based sunscreen. The mineral non-nano zinc oxide is not harmful to the coral, and it cannot be absorbed by the coral, so it mitigates any toxicity.
I just want to note that none of this content is mine. I know I should have said it at the start or maybe at the end, but I don't know why I'm doing it now. If you're up to this point, then I guess you know, but it'll be in the description anyway. I really don't care if I get copyrighted because I just want the word out. Anyway, I hope you can understand my situation, because I don't really know how to edit things well. And I'm at a really young age, so I can't really prove my point and do things like these people can. And the only wish I want is not for you to subscribe, not for you to like, but like this, go in the description, go to the original video, hit share, and give it to all your friends. It'll make a worldwide change, even if it's just one person. But most importantly, the only thing that matters is if you do your own.
We started noticing declines in coral reefs around 1980, 1985, which is about the same time that personal care products like sunscreen lotion were used prominently by tourists going to these beaches and visiting these coral reefs. What we're doing is we're looking at oxybenzone, a common UV chemical found in many sunscreen lotions and aerosol sprays. Oxybenzone can cause an adverse effect in coral at 62 parts per trillion. That is equivalent to 1 drop of water in 6.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So you don't need a lot to cause a lot of damage.
The oceans are providing the majority of the oxygen that we breathe, and it's this really neat symbiotic relationship between the coral reefs and the marine life, and the marine plants, and the phytoplankton to provide all of that oxygen for us.
So it's scary to think that by 2050, it's projected that we won't have any coral reefs by then, and knowing that most of our oxygen comes from the oceans and from the reefs, and that's a very scary thought, and I can't imagine what life will be like without it.
Yet again, I want to know if it is possible to survive without all that oxygen in the ocean, and if no one even bothers to play their part, then when it all dies, if there is no sea life, then but we're still alive and there's barely enough oxygen, then we're really just going to have to think about what the trees are actually doing for us at that moment in time.
All the islands out there in the world are basically, they almost have this like shield around them, which is like the reef, right? And it protects like the raw ocean coming in and like eroding the land.
Yeah, like this house wouldn't be here. You know, if this reef all dies and crumbles, and then there's no protection here, all these houses would go in.
Seem like we are in survival mode, because if we look outside, it looks beautiful, it's nice, but we don't see the subtle change of what's happening. So I think that that's a hard thing to always be aware of.
I think the most important thing to remember is how connected even things from halfway across the world affects your backyard.
But learning the science behind everything, that 70% of our oxygen comes from the ocean,
I realized that we need to do something, that everyone needs to care about this, that our oceans, our land, our sky, like everything's connected and we're part of that connection, and we need to start taking that seriously.
I've learned so much while working on this project. How everything in our oceans play a role. And when just one species disappears, then the entire ecosystem could collapse.
It's sad when you hear the facts about the disappearance of sharks worldwide. 70 to 100 million are killed every year, and they're looking in the last 30 years that we've wiped out 90 to 95% of the world's shark populations. And it's a keystone species. It shows the health of the oceans.
Why? Sometimes you just stop and think, why? You don't have to kill them, you just want to kill them for another source of food. I mean, think about it. When you get a KFC, I know it's not marine life, but it's still an animal. Like, if you think about it, it wouldn't. When you eat something that's meat, it's sort of. I was gonna say it's sort of like cannibalism, but I don't think it really is, because you're not eating your own kind. But it sort of is, because you're both made of meat, and it's... Yeah, I know they taste good, but if everything was reversed, for anything, cows would be eating you, and for anything, sharks would be catching you. So, think about it if the world was reversed. Animals would be in control, but they just don't have the ability to. So, we can even shame them for that, and kill ourselves doing it, or help them. Just help them so you can survive yourself. And they can. Both die, or both live. It's a pretty simple thing.
You know, if you're missing these apex predators, everything else is kind of fall apart underneath of it. So they're really kind of like a look into the future of what's going on with our oceans. With the disappearance of sharks, I mean, we could see a whole collapse of the ocean.
So everywhere where shark populations have been wiped out, they've seen a degradation of local reefs and a crash in their fish stock populations. And this might be attributed to the fact that if you don't have a predator that's picking off those weaker, sick, wounded, injured animals, then there's overgrazing, so the fish could just eat all the coral, but ultimately end up starving. Overpopulation, where they don't have enough to eat after this happens, or diseases spread. So if there's no doctor in the society and disease spreads, then you have this big crash.
I'm pretty sure no one else likes seeing that shark fin just be helplessly cut off. What the hell?
It is official. Your kids and generations to come will never see marine life again.
60% of our population depend on healthy coastal marine ecosystems. And the minute that goes away, everything else does.
If you enjoy breathing outside every day, this affects you and you need to act now.
Our generation was brainwashed to be lazy, to do things the easy way and not the right way. So like it's our responsibility to teach our kids and lead by example, especially, that we gotta do things the right way.
o vau o ar inui atau. E tamaroa vau nei num orea. E au matei tito ui te ie mahana, te miti tomato ora no ananhei.
Te au ai te hupata tātou e rowe nei e te whenua, e hupato e te pui roto e te miti. E hoea nā te teitua pē. Te nā ora Petra Praupa ari, ia oto ana te tei, e oto atoa nei te whenua. Tā tātou e tāpea mei te mahana.
I can't imagine walking outside and having to wear an oxygen mask just to breathe.
The thought of that terrifies me. I've got no idea.
But why don't, this is what I don't understand. Why does the whole world not know this right now? It's making me like scratch my head. Why is everyone walking around?
Look at this. You look at it, it looks pristine. You don't think any more about it. You know, no matter where you're from in the world, you rarely think about what's happening under there and how that impacts us. But it does, and it will.
We're at the last stage, the last.
This is the tipping point, right?
If we don't do something now, we can't do anything in the future. It's now or never.
Knowing that nightmare vision I had of the future scared me to my core. But there is hope. In order for us to realistically redirect the course of the future, we need your help. When this film premieres on June 13th, it will be my 23rd birthday. And my one wish is to have you share this video with all of your friends and family so that we can make everyone aware of what's happening to our oceans before our main source of oxygen collapses.
Because it's just what, you know, you'll be playing some games, maybe Fortnite, GTA, on that very computer or console you probably killed. It's not you playing the computer, it's the making of a computer that causes pollution. And we can easily switch to electric things. And I don't know why we haven't. One, it would be futuristic and look cool. Yay. And yet two, it would be helping everyone. Not just us as humans, though. Everything.
My friends and I didn't just travel to these places. We're in probably the most beautiful place on Earth, and here is the reality. This. We also shared everything we learned on social media.
Gang behind us.
Water bottles and excess.
Education is key to turning things around. So here are the 4 biggest contributors to the death of our reefs and oceans, and what you can do to help prevent it. The use of oil, fossil fuels, and coal all contribute to increasing our planet's temperatures, which has catastrophic consequences for our environment. The Earth has already warmed 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit since the 19th century. If the Earth warms a half degree more, it may mean the difference between a world with coral reefs or a world without. Instead, we must look to clean and renewable energy, solar, wind, and electric vehicles. Use more ride sharing as much as possible. Start walking more or riding bikes. Anything we can do to reduce our dependence on the stuff that's killing our planet. Virtually all rural areas near the coastline's runoff water is polluted by pesticides. Runoff goes directly to our oceans, in turn killing our marine life and coral reefs. It's been found that these chemicals affect all life history stages of corals, so we must stop this as soon as possible. Please stop spraying your lawns and vegetation with these harmful chemicals. Use natural herbicides instead, or just don't spray at all. Scientists have found that an estimated 14,000 tons of sunscreen is deposited into our oceans and reefs every year. That's 28 million pounds. Oxybenzone and octinazate are the most popular chemicals found in non-reef safe sunscreens, and they are also the most potent killers of our coral reefs. Read and look at the label carefully before you buy or use sunscreen. Make sure it says reef safe. 381 million tons of plastic was produced in 2017, and yet only 9% of all the world's plastic has ever been recycled. 1 million marine animals are killed annually due to entanglement and ingestion.
I know a lot of people said this, but we're drowning in our own creation. It's like an inventor making too much of the same thing and slowly killing everything else, including himself. I don't know what I'm talking about.
And reports are now saying that 70% of all fish have ingested plastic. And we ingest fish. We're slowly poisoning ourselves and our future. The good news is you and I can be part of the solution. Challenge yourself and others to minimize plastic use, and you might be surprised at how many alternatives already exist. For example, when shopping, bring your own reusable bags. Don't use plastic bags for fruits and vegetables, or plastic bottles for drinking. Drink from reusable canisters. Encourage your local stores to stop using so much plastic, and tell your local restaurants to switch to biodegradable material. Visit SaveTheReef.org, where you can learn more about these important issues, and also check out and support the charities we worked with during this film to help them conserve and bring our coral reefs back.
Kamagawa Foundation, we are donated $15,000 to coral gardeners. Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks, Amir. Cool, bro. Thank you.
We are donating $25,000 to reef restoration!
I wanted to surprise Dean with a boat for $50,000 from Kamagawa. Are you serious? I know you wanted a boat.
As we've already donated $90,000 to these charities, but with your help, it's just the beginning. You can donate to them and purchase Save the Reef charity apparel, where all the profits will go to helping rebuild our reefs, marine life, and oceans too. In order for this to work, we must all do our part to make change.
You as the consumer have all the power. You vote with your dollar. When you go to the store, you're the one that's going to pick out whether you choose that item that's wrapped in plastic or what kind of chemicals you're buying and what you're really ultimately supporting.
And by supporting these businesses that are prioritizing sustainable business practices and innovation, it's like we're directly speaking to what we value as consumers.
What gets me up going every day is meeting young people and seeing people willing to be part of that change and to lead where they can. And it all starts with one. We know what happens with one drop of water when it keeps gathering, and then it becomes the waterfall. And that's what I love, that change is coming and we're part of it.
were given the gift of life on a planet filled with everything we could ever need. As you've seen, we've come to a crossroads. We can either make history or we will become history. The key to saving our beautiful world starts with you.
And that is 50 minutes to save the world.